You're gonna be busy, but you're gonna love it. I lived in London for 3.5 years, and this is everything I would do in 3 days if I wanted to see as much as possible, but also still enjoy myself and not be miserable. I already have a 7-day itinerary, but I know that can kind of be overwhelming if you only have 3 days, so I've cut it down to the absolute must-dos. If you're coming from the US, chances are you're going to be landing in the morning, which means you kind of have to hit the ground running if you only have 3 days. I'd recommend going to your hotel or wherever you're staying, dropping your bags, and then I'd recommend heading to Buckingham Palace. If you want to see the changing of the guards, you're going to have to plan around it a little bit because it takes place only on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 11 a.m. But for the purposes of this itinerary, we're just going to see the palace, not the changing of the guards, so you can go at any time. From the palace, you can walk through St. James Park, which is a beautiful park, over to Parliament Square. From here, you have a view of Westminster Abbey, you'll have a great view of Big Ben, and then there's also phone booths on the right-hand side where you can take a good picture with the phone booth and with Big Ben. Since we're tight on time, I wouldn't recommend going into Westminster Abbey unless it's one of your absolute must-dos. Instead, I would recommend walking over to Westminster Bridge from here. As you walk across Westminster Bridge, there's going to be a ton of great views. Behind you is going to be Big Ben. This is where a lot of people like to take their iconic pictures. On the left, it's going to be the London Eye, and then I'd recommend keep walking across the bridge until you get to the Southbank. That is the other side of the river. And from there, there's also a really good picture spot at the bottom of the stairs. You can get a picture with Big Ben behind you and the bridge. And then I would recommend turning left and continuing east down the river. This next part is going to be kind of walking heavy, so if you have limited mobility or you are just not up for walking that much, I would recommend getting either the Google Maps app or City Mapper and putting in the points that I'm going to mention. That will tell you how to get everywhere. I also have a public transportation video that I'll link in the cards and in the description if you need more information about that. But in my opinion, if you can walk, this is a really great way to see the sights walking along the Southbank. So you're going to pass the London Eye. You're going to pass Millennium Bridge, which has a beautiful view at the end of it of St. Paul's Cathedral. You're going to pass Shakespeare's Globe. Then you're going to make your way to Borough Market. This is an amazing, iconic food market in London, and I think it's closed on Mondays, so I'm going to put on here what days and times that they are open every other day. You've most definitely seen people at Borough Market. That is where people get these huge strawberries with the chocolate on them. There's a huge paella bowl. There's just so many different foods from around the world, and it's an amazing experience. I will warn you that it does get really, really crowded, especially around lunch. And I don't think this should deter you from going, but I do think you just kind of need to have it in your mind that you're just going to have to deal with the crowds. If that's not something that you want to do, there are a number of pubs around the area that I will put in the description, or just grab and go places that you can grab a bite to eat. From Borough Market, you are going to continue east down the river a little bit until you get to Tower Bridge. Now this is the iconic bridge. A lot of people think this is London Bridge, but it is not. London Bridge is the one next to it, and it is just a regular looking bridge, but the iconic bridge is Tower Bridge. At the end of Tower Bridge is the Tower of London, and if you'd like to, you can have a tour here. So I'd recommend doing a Beefeater tour. This is hosted by the Yeomans. They're the ceremonial guards of the tower, and they actually live in the tower, so it's cool because they have the historical knowledge and they also have knowledge of how the tower works today. The crown jewels are also housed at the Tower of London, so you can see those as well. I did this on my very, very last day of living in London, and I thought it was really fun. I'd recommend, if you are interested in doing this, leaving at least an hour and a half to 2 hours to be able to experience it. At this point, you might be incredibly exhausted and just want to grab some dinner and go back to your hotel, and that is totally fine. If your energy is still high and you still want to keep going, here are a few other things that you could do. First is St. Dunstan's in the east. Now this is an old church that was bombed, and they just kind of left the ruins of it, so it's now just this beautiful garden. There's not a ton to do there. It's not huge, but if you want pictures or you just want to see it, I'd recommend stopping by. Next is Leadenhall Market, and this is an old school market that actually inspired Diagon Alley in Harry Potter, and now there are some pubs in there and just kind of some specialty shops, but it's definitely worth going if you have the time and energy. Nearby is also a free rooftop called the Garden at 120, and this is actually right next to the Shard, and the Shard, as you may know, has a viewing platform at the top that is free to enter, but you do have to book ahead. So if you want to kind of think through your day and plan on going at a certain time, you can book it. However, if you're kind of just maybe we'll go, maybe we won't, I'd say the Garden at 120 is a great option. And that's it for day one. Day 2 is jam-packed, but I've also built in some time for you to just relax and enjoy yourself, so don't be too overwhelmed. We're gonna start your day at Kensington Gardens. If you're really interested in going into Kensington Palace, you can do that here. I would recommend booking your tickets ahead of time just so you know like what time you're gonna be there and you can kind of plan your day around it. And then when you feel like you've seen everything that you want to, head over to Notting Hill. You've definitely heard of Notting Hill. Notting Hill, they have pastel houses, lots of cool shops, vintage shops, bakeries, Portobello Road Market. This is like a cool vendors market. It goes all the way down Portobello Road. And it's just a generally good place to walk around, walk into shops, like just kind of browse. Next up, we're headed to one of my favorite neighborhoods in London, which is Little Venice. I just think it's so beautiful up there. They have a lot of really cute cafes. One of them is called Clifton Nurseries, which is actually a like working nursery that also has a cafe in it. They do have like kind of weird hours and they're closed sometimes. So another place would be the Waterside Cafe, which is actually a cafe that's on a boat. It's so cute. And next to that is the London Water Bus Company, which does canal tours. So we're gonna hop on a canal boat over to Camden Market. This is where I've kind of built in your sitting and chilling vibe. This probably takes about an hour. Camden Market is huge, so you can spend a sizable amount of time there. There's lots of food stands and tons of shop vendors. From Camden Market, I'd recommend walking over to Primrose Hill. Now, vibes are gonna shift exponentially. Camden has more of like kind of an edgier vibe, and then Primrose Hill is like very posh, but that is the beauty of London. Every neighborhood has such a different feel, and so you can have so many different experiences all in one day, and in this case they're like literally right next to each other and they couldn't be more different. Primrose Hill has a lot of really cute little restaurants, bakeries, specialty shops, groceries. Weather permitting, I'd recommend grabbing some picky bits from the grocery or bakery or something, taking those up onto the top of Primrose Hill and watching the sunset. You will see tourists and locals alike just enjoying London and having the best time. This is going to be kind of a choose your own adventure because I have two options that give the same vibe. They're slightly different and I'll kind of explain both of them so you can decide which is best for you. So we're choosing between Hampstead Heath and Greenwich. I'm a little bit partial to Greenwich, which you'll probably pick up on because I live there, but they're both really good options. Like you can't go wrong with either of them. The reason they're very similar vibes is they both have really beautiful, like the best parks in London in my opinion. Greenwich, I think it's a little bit more condensed. There's more to do in a smaller amount of space, so if your feet are tired, I'd say this is maybe a good option. Also, you can get there taking the riverboat, which I'll talk about in a second. It's amazing. Hampstead Heath is going to require a lot more walking. It's a lot more spread out, so it's a heath, which is more of like kind of a wild park. The paths aren't paved for the most part. They are like rocks and dirt. It's probably like the most bucolic of all the places in London, and the village itself is also really cute. And then in Greenwich, the park is paved and it's more of like kind of a built up park. It's not as wild as Hampstead Heath. Both have beautiful views. Greenwich has a view of Canary Wharf and also the Queen's House and the Royal Naval College. It's like one of the most beautiful views in my opinion. Hampstead Heath has kind of a more sweeping view of the little village and then also the skyline of London from a little bit further away. Also in Greenwich, the village is a little bit closer to the park, so you don't have to do as much walking to get from place to place. And in Greenwich, there's the Royal Naval College, which is one of the most filmed areas of London. It is just so beautiful. It is the school that I went to, so I'm a little bit biased, but I think it is the most beautiful place in London. Another thing about Greenwich that I love is that you can take the Uber boat over there. This is, it's called the Thames Clipper, and it's just like any other public transportation you can tap on with your contactless credit card. And it's about a 45-minute to an hour ride over there, depending on where you start in central London. If you do want to take the Uber boat, I'd recommend hopping on a little bit further west so that you can see, like, you can pass the Houses of Parliament and go under Tower Bridge, and that will add a little bit of time onto the boat trip, but it's a really great way to see the city. From whichever place you ended up, either Hampstead Heath or Greenwich, you're going to go back to central London and go to Covent Garden. Covent Garden has a lot of shopping and restaurants, and more than that, it's just somewhere that I think is fun to see and walk around. There's like a covered market there and it's just really pretty, but it's also really close to the West End. So what I would recommend is spending some time walking around in Covent Garden, having dinner, and then going to the West End to see a show. As I mentioned earlier, I do have a 7-day itinerary, so if you're staying a little bit longer, you can check that out. I also have a whole London guide series where I covered everything from how to get from the airport to central London, how to use public transportation, and just some general tips that I think will help you out. So make sure to check those out. I'll link them in the cards and in the description. I'll also put in the description anything I think of, like restaurants or places that I would recommend in each of the areas that I have put in the itinerary. So you can check that out if you want to dive a little bit deeper. And I will see you next time. Bye.